This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com.
Welcome to the Digital Desperados podcast featuring dark tales from the web. Patrick McMurphy's here today to tell us our dark tales, and he's joined by Brad Hawkins, founder and CEO of SaferNet VPN. I'm Jim Brangenberg, and I'll serve as your story guide and crowd control. This podcast is brought to you by SaferNet. World War III started on your computer when Al Gore unleashed the internet in 1994. You want to fortify your business against cyber attacks? SaferNet is the answer. It's our easy-to-use cybersecurity app. Protects on all fronts, your enterprise on all fronts. Secure your organization's online journey with VPN, powerful internet filters, web filters, and antivirus. Embrace simple yet robust cybersecurity with SaferNet. Get it now. Go to safernet.com. That's safernet.com. All right, Patrick, what dark tale are you telling us about today?
Well, today, Jim, it's a pretty spicy one. We have Junaid Hussain, aka Trick, aka the head of the Islamic State Hacking Division and United Cyber Caliphate. That is a mouthful to say. But Junaid is born around 1994 in Birmingham in the UK. Growing up, he's a very quiet kid. He's reserved. His father is a very well-respected member of the British Pakistani community. He does private hire cabs, as in taxis, around the Birmingham area. He's very well respected in the community. He's hardworking. He's well spoken. But Junaid, at age 11, he's not really growing up with, a lot of guys we've covered, they start really interested in computers. He's not right out of the gate, and he's more into video games. And so at age 11, he's playing an online video game, and his account gets hacked. And so if you guys probably don't know this, I mean, this happened to me when I was about 12 as well, but if you have an online game and you put so many hours into it and it gets hacked, it feels like your whole life is over, but you're like 12 years old, But it upsets him greatly. And so what most people at this point just try to recover their accounts, but Junaid instead decides he's going to start learning how to hack because he is quite impressed by the whole thing. And so he joins a few forums, he does a few tutorials, he starts hacking websites and servers, and he's joining online forums, kind of just honing his skills. And now by age 15, Junaid becomes very politically active, and he's inspired by these global injustices against Muslims. And so just to clarify here with Junaid, he's saying he's Muslim and, he's inspired by this, but he's not really practicing Islam at this point yet. But he gets involved in all these street protests against these groups like the EDL. Now, I won't spend a lot of time talking about the EDL, but it's the English Defence League. They're generally considered kind of a skinhead right-wing group in England. If you ever watch movies about like football hooliganism in the UK, it's all EDL guys. It's always the same guys.
Football, for those you mean soccer is what you really mean.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is there NFL hooligans? I mean, I've been to a few tailgating, and that kind of felt a bit like hooliganism. But it depends who you're with. If you're with Broncos fans, it definitely is. And so Junaid, at this point, by 2009, he found something called Team Poison, and so this is a hacking group, and they're targeting organizations that they think are perceived as enemies of Muslims, basically. And they work alongside another group called ZHC, their Z Company Hacking Crew. Terrible name. But they're another group that are concerned about the same things, effectively. And so Team Poison, they're a group of about 8 hacktivists. They're mostly teenagers, young adults. They're all from the UK. Junaid starts using the pseudonym Trick at this point. And I love this part because, so all these guys are alleged to be Muslims, right? And this is the name, this is all their tags, their hacking names. So the other members are Insane, MLT, Phantom, Corpse, Forsaken, Axiom, and Apocalypse. So, I don't know what they're into at this point, but their main vector at this point, and when I say a vector, I mean, how do they hack things, is spear phishing. And so spear phishing is very, very common. And so what happens is that you see it a lot in small businesses, but if you're a CEO,
Patrick, can you explain spear phishing a touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll say, for example, you're a CEO or a CTO in a small company. You get an email from, you think maybe the CFO, some kind of accountant within the company, and so on, saying, "Oh, I got locked out of this portal. Can you sign in here and put in your details and give me access?" And that seems like it wouldn't work, but it works probably 90% of the time. It's always, spear phishing is a big way to kind of get these big names. And why it's called spear phishing. So phishing is when you send out these blanket emails, but spear phishing is using the spears like Ishmael,
It's a targeted attack. It's a targeted attack.
Yeah, exactly. So you know who you're targeting. However, these guys are still hacktivists, so they're not really gone down the hacking for money route yet. So in December 2010, they basically, Team Poison post on a number of groups saying that they're going to clean up Facebook on New Year's Eve. And so what does that translate into? Basically, December 31st, 2010, there's hundreds of Facebook groups, pages basically taken down. These are mostly groups owned by EDL or associated with them, and they're wiped blank entirely. However, they also hacked Mark Zuckerberg page, which is impressive because the man is the CEO of Facebook. And at the time, Nicolas Sarkozy, he was the then president of France. So these guys, they know what they're doing. They're not just hacking random groups. If you can hack Mark Zuckerberg on his website, they're dead.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, there's talent there. Now, there's other things. So, Team Poison, they also claim to have the personal information of EDL, their leaders and supporters, because the EDL are mostly wanted by police for violence. And so they threaten to release a lot of that information. They do. But by mid-2011, Junaid is really, they want to escalate their hacking activities. So they hack into Tony Blair. He was the UK Prime Minister. They hack into his personal email account and they leak a lot of information about him, including his address book. There's riots then in summer 2011 in England. They hack into BlackBerry because basically BlackBerry have kind of been ratting out a lot of people. Team Poison, again, they were in these street protests and BlackBerry they're with the authorities. And so Team Poison don't want their members to be revealed, basically. They also defaced Croatia's NATO website that was politically motivated. They breach a United Nations Development Program server, and they access a lot of sensitive data. And so this kind of goes on. They get the UK Ministry of Defence email accounts. It's this whole thing. They're on a rampage at this point. They hook up with Anonymous. Now, we've talked about Anonymous a few times, but Anonymous were a global hacktivist organization. And they hack a lot of Israeli websites, basically in support of pro-Palestinian and the Occupy movement. If anyone can remember the Occupy movement back 15 years ago, there was a very well publicized attack. It was actually phone-based. And you really, anything past 1980s, you don't see a lot of phone-based attacks. But it was on the UK's counter-terrorism command hotline. And so if you're hacking counter-terrorism, you probably don't have good intentions in mind. But it wasn't simple, but it was kind of juvenile. Basically, they got bombarded with these robotic calls just saying Team Poison over and over. And it would just bring down the hotline. So, it was pretty bad.
Now, was there motivation there to, or with all of this, is it to disrupt? Or are they just trying to show their strength and power, or are they really trying to destroy an enemy that they perceive as an enemy?
Yeah, it's basically the last one. It's all political. They think that there's these various bodies out against Muslims as a whole, so they want to take down all these things, and so they see the counter-terrorism command as being anti-Islam. I'm not going to go even further into that, but you can put two and two together yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
But again, he actually calls into the counter-terrorism force himself, basically just kind of taunting them. So he's showing off. But, this is all well and good. But if you hack the CTC, the counterterrorism, you will get caught. And so they tracked him down like within a week of this happening. So do not ever hack these people.
So you got a little cocky.
Yeah, just a small bit.
All right. So I mean, so he calls in and says he introduced himself. Hey, this is Junaid Hussain, or what did he say?
He introduced himself as Trick, which was one of his hacking titles. He's using actually an American accent at the time.
Americans don't have accents. What are you talking about?
Oh, never. I've never heard an American accent ever in my life.
Well, speaking of accents or accidents, that's why you need SaferNet on your side. I mean, imagine if you got a guy like Junaid Hussain and he's sending you spear phishing emails. If you click a link and it doesn't go where it's supposed to go, SaferNet will save the day and keep you from going where you shouldn't go. If it's easy to use, you know that you'll use it. What if you had one place to monitor all your internet activity of everyone that works for you? Safeguard your business with SaferNet. SaferNet delivers top-notch cybersecurity with user-friendly interfaces. It's incredible. Protect your sensitive data with a virtual private network and shield your employees from harmful content with 84 internet filters. Choose SaferNet so you can get peace of mind. Get secured now. SaferNet.com. That's SaferNet.com. So our buddy gets arrested. He gets a little cocky, gets arrested. How's that happen?
Well, again, just don't try to hack the counterterrorism forces. But when he's in prison, and this for Junaid is...
So he doesn't just get arrested. He gets arrested, convicted, and thrown in prison.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, he's convicted here. But the prison is a turning point for him. And you see this happen throughout, we'll say, the decades with various groups where someone gets put in prison for something and they get heavily radicalized when they're in prison. Because when you're in prison, you're in close quarters with people who are in there probably for much bigger things. And so Junaid at this point, before he was kind of politically Islam, but now he's religiously a Muslim, and he total bought into everything about it. A journalist who kind of covered a lot around his life kind of said afterwards that he was quote unquote enlightened in prison by people he met in there. So you can imagine there's a lot of radical Muslims in these prisons, and he's basically they're preaching, and he just eats it all up.
Mentored by them, probably.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can actually even see this in the history of Ireland with guys going into prison and becoming radicalized by the IRA, which probably sounds terrible coming from an Irish person. But again, this always happens through the decades. If there's one group in a prison that are radical or very passionate, they will actually just gain more members in there. It's always the case. Now, he actually does eventually get out of prison. I'm not sure how long he was in there for, because he only gets convicted for the CTC calls. But he did bomb them with these phone calls, and they are CTC. So he leaves prison, and this is probably the one good thing he did. He briefly starts a website called illsecure.com, and it's a legal white hat hacking platform. So he's like a security consultant. This is the only good thing he ever does in his life, by the way. Everything past here is downhill. But yeah, as I said, his conversion in prison had completely hardened him, and 2013 he leaves for Syria. So he's very he doesn't tell a lot of people initially that he's leaving, but he does post on Facebook saying that he's arrived in Syria. He describes how he dodged all these Turkish guards on the way who shot at him as he crossed borders. That's probably made up by him to sound kind of cool or something, I
think we had some elected officials here in the United States. They claimed that they were under fire at certain places when that wasn't true either.
Yeah. But what we do know is that who helped them get into Syria, because he did have some way into Syria, and we believe that it would have been a connection to someone within the Islamic State, as in ISIS, who he'd met through contacts in prison. And so he changes his name when he joins ISIS. And I really found out when I was researching this is something that they do. They take something called a kunya, which is like a war name. And so he changes his name to Abu Hussein al-Brittani. And the funniest thing about that is that you're trying to go for this Islamic name and you have al-Brittani and you were born in Britain. Like, come on. Like, anything else, man, I'm just going to keep referring to him as Junaid at this point. So he deletes his Facebook. He recreates another one under this name. He makes a Twitter account. He's in contact with a few people that he knew from his previous life. He's mentioning to people that he's joined a group, quote unquote. He won't say which one. It's definitely ISIS. But around this time, and so this is late 2013. This is where story gets a little bit weird here. But so his fiancée, Sally Jones, who's a British woman, moves to Syria to join him. So she's 25 years his senior.
Cougar.
And she
Can anybody say cougar? That's a big time cougar right there.
I don't know what the Arabic term for cougar is, but it's one of those. But they had started some romantic relationship online when they were both in the UK. But we don't think they actually met before arriving in Syria. Now, I won't get into her life because you could write a book about it, but I'll just say she had this very troubled rock and roll drugs lifestyle, kind of textbook. But they moved to Raqqa, which at that time was known, it was ISIS's kind of de facto capital of the caliphate. Now, by mid-2014, the British tabloids, right, are notorious. I mean, if you ever get the displeasure of picking one up and reading it, you're going to lose some brain cells. But they love reporting on anything sensational. And so they do have this huge spread on British woman moved to Syria to, meet British-born ISIS member. And so it's all over the papers. It's kind of a talking point around 2014 or so. And they're focusing on things like, Junaid actually had a hack in history because they're getting all this information out in daylight. And the fiance had this, rock and roll lifestyle. But the thing was, the couple were very active on social media, and it starts getting into a darker slant here. But so initially they were just kind of trolling people online, making fun of people. But then they started encouraging Muslims to migrate to ISIS territory to join them. They used social media to basically call for acts of terrorism across the US and the UK. So we're going into a bad place here. And what Junaid at this point was doing, he was actually contacting people through messaging apps, trying to encourage them to do various things. And so despite his hacking background, his actual security is quite weak. He was using Kik Messenger as a contact method. I don't know, did you guys use Kik back in the day? But it was mostly teenagers on it, and I think he was trying to recruit teenagers. But I mean, even to that, he was also using Skype. Skype was never ever secure, so he for a hacker, he's not thinking well here at all.
Now, at this point, is he still doing any hacking, or is he just recruiting for ISIS?
He's basically recruiting, but there's hacking involved shortly. So, and kind of his role in it.
This guy should have a movie made after him. This is like a saga.
Yeah, basically. And so he's basically starts this English language online recruitment for young ISIS members. To join ISIS. Now they're called the FBI have names for them. It's the Legion or Raqqa 12. But there's a lot of notable British nationals in this. There's Raid Khan, Raphael Hosty, Neil Prakash, just guys who went on to do various acts of violence. But this group that he's founded, we'll just call them the Legion. I mean, they're reaching people globally here, Muslims globally, trying to radicalize them online. One of the most notable recruits was this guy. Trying to pronounce this is going to be crazy. Mudir Abdul Kadar. Actually, it was okay.
That's pretty good.
But he was he was an American. He was an Ohio college student. He had to reach out to Junaid because he found him through, because they were blasted with these posts. So he basically discouraged Abdul Kadar from traveling to Syria, and instead he wanted the kid to kidnap and kill US military members. And so this kind of shifted a little. He was basically trying to command this kid on what to do. He was then trying to convince him to attack a police station near Cincinnati. But at this point, the authorities were tracking a lot of this specific kid's communication, and they arrested him before he carried out anything. But he had been to a shooting range. He'd been practicing shooting. So his plan was to carry out a shooting on Junaid's command.
Wow.
Now,
what a great guy. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have friends, you might as well recruit somebody from Cincinnati, Ohio. Probably worked at WKRP back in the day. but if you're going to have security and you're going to talk to people online, Brad, I mean, I can use Skype today. I don't have to worry about security, right? Because I have SaferNet on my computer.
That's the beauty of SaferNet, is that it creates a tunnel of protection that you can operate throughout the internet and do what you need to do, and operate within that VPN with the virus protection inside of it, which is just fantastic. And for business owners or parents or whoever, you can also see in the dashboard the traffic, the activity, to make sure that they're not doing anything crazy. So yes, it is a very exciting, highly protective app that you can put on any endpoint device.
So you're saying if a parent might happen to be raising the future star of one of our shows, that they can tell their illustrious or illegal, potentially illegal activity, and see it in the dashboard on SaferNet.
Exactly, they're on top of it. They can pay attention. You kind of wish that his parents would have noticed when he was hacked from his video game. So yes.
Yeah, think about that. If they just had SaferNet back then, maybe Junaid could have been the Prime Minister of the UK. You never know. Check us out online, safernet.com. That's safernet.com. Okay, our friend Abdul Qadar was arrested before he could do anything. That's where we left the story off.
Exactly. And so Junaid at this point he's just continuing to try influence these young men to carry out acts of violence. A lot of them are getting caught, thankfully, before things happen. But Junaid becomes he was considered the head of the Islamic State hacking division. And so, Brad, to kind of answer your question, at this point, I don't think Junaid was doing any personal hacking, but he would basically influence and instruct people how to hack for ISIS. And so he did convince one kid, Frezi, to basically get into hacking. And so he had basically hacked a retailer, and they were trying to get personal information because we'll say if you're a retailer and you're like, oh, sign up for our discounts, and you sign up with your email address, a lot of people will sign up with an email address ending in .gov or .mil. Don't do that if you have either of those email addresses, by the way, but people do it. It's not a good thing to do. So Percy just culls all these email addresses, and they find out the information of basically 1,351 military or government personnel. That same day, he sends all this Junaid, and then Junaid publishes this document online with all these people's information threatening their lives. And so at this point, the US and the UK are like, okay, this guy is serious business. He's recruiting people. He's plotting attacks, inciting violence. He actually makes his name on as number 3 on the Pentagon's target list.
Oh my! So, wow, he got somebody's attention.
Yeah, this guy is like the guy pulling strings behind a lot. So US and UK, they're like, okay, we can't arrest this guy. We're going to kill him, right? So 10 days before he dies, they're basically trying to kill him with drone strikes. 10 days before he dies, they try to kill him, but instead in Raqqa, there's 3 civilians killed, 5 are injured. And this is where, for Junaid, this gets into a real, you can never look at this guy with a glimpse of respect after you hear this. So Junaid and his wife, anytime they left their house, they had a young son, newborn, and they used their baby as a human shield to prevent attacks, because they knew that the US and the UK wouldn't just drone strike a child. I would never get over that.
Wow.
But what happened on one occasion, he was killed because Junaid dies because he had ventured out without his shield, i.e. his firstborn child. He gets killed in a drone strike. But how did this happen? So this is kind of a bit of ironic. So they found his exact location because he got reversed hacked, basically. He gets sent a phishing link by a white hat hacker who who's working for the government to give him his location, and he gets spoofed into clicking a hacking link. So if he had SaferNet, I'm okay, I won't go there.
That's funny.
But at the time, this is kind of a joint strike. So the US and the UK work together and they take out most of the leading members of Legion, these online recruiters. And so this is probably the first time, and I think it might be the last time, that a hacker is actually considered enough of a threat to be killed by a drone strike. And so, I mean, Junaid's story is insane. It could be a movie. You know, it's a story of how this kid who's kind of, you know, he's passionate as a teenager. He's getting behind what he thinks is right, but he becomes this figure in global terrorism, you know. So his life has been, you know, cut short, obviously, but his life as a cyber terrorist lives on. So it just kind of is this idea that he wasn't just a hacker, but he's this guy that's fueled by ideology, and they're capable of wreaking havoc on a global scale from Raqqa, just using Facebook and Twitter a lot of the time.
Wow. I always find it amazing to think about how it started. I always enjoy seeing the journey and how it could have been corrected or fixed or whatever it is. But you think about this kid who got hacked playing a video game, and it ticked him off so much that he ends up killing millions or being part of a team that does that. It's just absolutely amazing. And you think about your own journey and what it is that you could choose, what direction you could choose with your own journey. It's really kind of an interesting backtrack thought.
To even like look at that, and if you want to shorten it, you would say, what is the pipeline between getting hacked in a video game and dying by a drone strike? That's
yeah.
What happens in between?
Well,
that's a big story.
You heard it here on the Digital Desperados podcast. The internet and everything digital can have a dark side with many dark players. You can use this tool to keep your kids from becoming the next Junaid Hussain. It's why you need SaferNet by your side. VPN, antivirus, 84 website filters, and so much more. Thanks to SaferNet for supporting our efforts to bring these stories to your ears and give them the exposure that they need. And please, for your own security and the security of those you love and those you work with, check out SaferNet.com and get secured today. SaferNet.com. Till next time, click only on the attachments and the links you trust from those you trust and delete the rest, or you may become the next victim of a digital desperado.
This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at SaferNet.com.
World War III started on your computer when Al Gore unleashed the internet in 1994. Want to fortify your business against cyber attacks? SaferNet VPN is the answer. Our easy-to-use cybersecurity app protects your enterprise on all fronts. Plus, secure your family's online journey with powerful internet filters. Embrace simple yet robust cybersecurity with SaferNet VPN now. Get secured now. Sign up at SaferNet.com. That's SaferNet.com.